Welcome to the 6th edition of our skill building webinar. My name is Felicia Odumosu, and I'm the principal partner at Talent Bureau Limited, a talent management and recruitment firm. With me here today is my wonderful business partner, my sister and my friend, Amaka Akinteye. She'll be introducing herself shortly to everyone so you can get to meet her. Amaka, please, over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. You're welcome to this great webinar. My name is Amaka Akinteye and I'm a partner with Talent Bureau Limited. And so we are just going to start a great session. We were waiting for people to join on, and we have a good number of us. So we are starting. Nisha, do you want me to introduce her? I think you should do that.
Yes, because I have her details here with me.
Okay, yeah, good. Awesome.
We're so happy that everyone, you're able to join us today. We're not taking that for granted. Thank you for joining us in this special session. And I want to really emphasize that word special because the speaker we have today is really special to our hearts. She's been a wonderful leader. She's been a wonderful encourager. She's been exceptionally unique. And I just wanted everyone to hear her talk. I've had cases where I've had to meet her for an advice on what to do or how to go about particular decisions in my life. And she was always ready to share her knowledge. The first time I called her, I just asked a question on something, nobody would expect on the first call, on the first time of talking to someone. And the way she gave the advice, the way she, encouraged me, for me, it made her just special and exceptional. So I'd like to introduce Mrs. Olatowun Candide-Johnson. And I'll start by saying, Olatowun Candide-Johnson is a lawyer. She has 30 years experience in corporate and commercial law and in business development, and then in governance multinational corporations. During the course of her career, she worked in law practice, shipping, and oil and gas. Whilst working with the Total Group, she worked in different divisions, including 3 years in the new business affairs Novelis, a division in Paris headquarters. And then before taking an early retirement, she held the roles of General Counsel, Executive General Manager, Management Services Division incorporating legal, audit, insurance, and anti-corruption compliance. And then she became Chief Compliance Officer in the Total Upstream companies in Nigeria. In 2016, she obtained a Global Executive MBA awarded by the London School of Economics, NYU, that's the New York Stern Business School, and HEC Paris, which is, Paris Harvard, known as the Triumph Global Executive MBA. After many years in corporate life, she turned her sights to an entrepreneurial pursuit and the challenge to open an exclusive space in Lagos to help bridge the business connections gap in Nigeria by leading women. The response to this opportunity is GAIA Women's Club, meaning Mother Earth, that's the meaning of GAIA, a members-only business and social club for women. And then you can find out more about that when you go to www.gaiawomenclub.com. GAIA is based in Victoria Island. Olatowun is a chairman of African Delivery Technologies ADT, a parent company of Quick Delivery, which is a French startup, which aims at becoming the first platform for last mile delivery in urban areas in Nigeria. She's also the founder parent in Lagos Preparatory School, Ikoyi, one of Ikoyi's leading British curriculum preparatory schools in Lagos. She's a member of the board of directors of the Nigerian Norwegian Chamber of Commerce, she's an expert in African Women on Board, AWB. She's a member of the Committee of Tourism and Hospitality of the Institute of Directors, IOD. She's also an angel investor and a member of Rising Tide Africa, a network of female business angels investing in entrepreneurs across the African continent. Olatowun is Wines and Spirits Education Trust, WSET Level 2 certified, and Dame Chevalier de l'Hôte de Couteau de Champagne of 2017. She loves all forms of the art, culture, food and wine, pilots, yoga, books, traveling, and interesting places. And she's also my mentor. Please, everybody, welcome Dito. That was a long introduction, but I needed to go through all that so that we can all see, the many hats she wears. Welcome, CJ. and I pass the baton over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go? Should I go?
Oh, yes, you
Yeah.
can. We can hear you.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. I see that there's a nice little number. There are very few of us, so it's going to be nice and intimate. So please feel free to stop me at any time, ask questions, and if I am logged out of this session for any reason, please hang on, because it just means that my Wi-Fi is switching again. Is it me, or are there some men on in this meeting? Can you raise your hands if you're male, basically? And I ask that because I have really sort of like, this presentation is really for women, but that's not to say that, you know, it won't benefit any men. In fact, it probably will benefit you because, you know, there's certain things that women can do and do naturally that you could learn. So, okay, so I'm just going to go right into it and we'll share my screen. Ah, so there's a man here. Welcome. You're in good company.
I saw two hands initially.
Oh, two, sorry, right, okay, well, welcome both of you. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about developing leadership skills, which actually is a little bit of a hard subject because, you know, leadership is one of those subjects that you learn through your life. You can't learn it in one day, you can't learn it in a year, it's something that is ongoing. I'm still attending leadership courses and seminars today, so, you know, that's just to show that it's not something that we do, you know, just once. It's something that it's a continuous learning, So, okay, how do I move this? Okay, right, here we go. So just basically to introduce the subject, we need to know at least a little bit what, you know, what is the academics for leadership. And of course, leadership can be seen in many different ways. But I've put a few definitions here about what a leader is. And primarily, a leader sets direction of a vision, really, usually, and builds an inspiring vision. And sometimes they just build something completely new, right? But it's really about mapping where you want to go and to win as a team. It's really about guiding, you know, your people to a destination, and just by being there for those people. What it is not being a manager. So there's a very big difference between, you know, a manager who just basically manages individuals, really doesn't show much in terms of vision, but just guides, or rather manages the people. That's not what a leader is. So you want to be careful about, you know, how you lead in terms of, you know, lead versus manage, and how you are led. Because, you know, it's all very well to be highly skilled at a job and, you know, valuable to an organization, but that does not necessarily make you a leader. So this is just depicting what I've just said, where the boss sort of pushes you, go, 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 but a leader will go with you, okay? So it's really the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because you've inspired them to want to do it effectively. And that was a Dwight Eisenhower quote. So what I find the most fascinating is the subject of transformational leadership, because, and that really is because we are attracted to visionaries. They inspire us. They make us want to do things. They make us want to, you know, hang on their every word, because they themselves come across as authentic, inspiring, knowledgeable, etc. So transformational leadership was first proposed by James McGregor Burns, and then it was developed by Bernard Bass. And what is it? It is leadership that creates an inspiring vision of the future. A leader that motivates and inspires people to engage with that vision. Leaders must motivate and they must inspire. If they don't, they just don't. And, you can't really call them leaders. They manage also the delivery of that vision. So they manage, they can explain the vision. They can make you see it even in the way that they see it. They can make you picture it. They coach the team. They coach you on an individual basis into how to actually achieve the vision. So it's a very dynamic and proactive way of being. And yeah, it's problem solving. It's definitely looking ahead, and it's really not being satisfied with things as they are. And that's why, you find a lot of entrepreneurs, I suppose, who are visionaries, and they want to change things. They want to, yeah, they're not happy with the status quo, and so they create something. And so what are those effects of transformational leadership? A transformational leader will positively influence his or her followers. And, it really is the difference between, when you talk about work, it's the difference between the grind and mundane, God, I have to go to work because I need to earn a living, to, wanting to go somewhere because it's enriching and it's fulfilling and it's a great experience. And it actually provides for you a positive source of just being, your identity. It infuses all aspects of the positive. And then also it provides opportunities, okay? And so that leader also has to be inspirational and must motivate. And the way they do that is through coaching, attention to individual needs, abilities, and aspirations. They help their people develop strengths. And also a leader must actually promote a socially engaging environment where values are shared. Because if you don't share your values, then, what is it that your followers or your team what should they be looking up to? Also, when you are enthusiastic as a leader, when you show your enthusiasm, this will very often lead to engagement. And that engagement will lead to commitment, to satisfaction, and to invention and performance. So you want your team also to be very innovative and intuitive and, high performing, etc. So why do we need these leadership skills in particular? Well, so this was very much for women leaders. And it's really simply because we just don't have enough. And, I'm just going to skip to the last line, which is really that, can you imagine that 75% of all female prime ministers and presidents have taken office in the last 20 years? And how many have there been? A handful, right? So that is really just to show that, yeah, we really need to build more female leaders because, in a way, certainly the way children were brought up in the past, and I think things are changing now, is the automatic assumption that the boys will always be the leaders and the girls will always be the followers or, whatever. But things are changing now, obviously. And, people are, making sure that their kids, especially their girl children, know for a fact that, there's nothing that they can't do and they need to aspire to do whatever it is that they want to do. Also, the reason that we need to have a lot more leaders is because we need to be able to change the dynamic of society. If you don't have women leaders around the table where decisions are being made, so for example, in parliament, for example, in executive committees of companies, in the executive, what they call them, the people around the president, if you don't have women who are there speaking up about issues that concern women, we can't really expect the men to automatically do it because they don't have that experience, right? So I remember, if you've read the book Lean In, when Sheryl Sandberg was talking about, was either her, I think it was her, who was in the executive team of, was it Google? I think it was Google before Facebook. and how, it was only when she was pregnant that she even realized that, oh dear, the car park is just too far for a pregnant woman to be walking, and made sure that, they made that change. But if they didn't have that woman on that team, it would never, because the men don't really think in that way. So I just really wanted to look at one particular female leader who's been sort of making waves during this, in the last few months, certainly from the beginning of this year. And that is Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. And why? Because her leadership style is so much more different to even other female leaders. She's very open, so she shares a lot of information. She's honest. I mean, she comes across as really honest and being authentic. She's effective in her communication. She's engaging. And, she just has this sort of natural, empathetic way of communicating with everybody. And it's really not about, I. It's really about, I stand with you as a people. She doesn't preach. And this has won her sort of like all sorts of accolades. And, I remember reading something about how Jacinda Ardern not only managed the effects of a very, very bad earthquake, but also the pandemic, all while holding a baby, right? So it's really, and just the fact that, she's very cool under pressure, she's decisive, her government is decisive. So these are the things that, we need to aspire to when we talk about female leadership, especially. Nigeria has its leaders, but I mean, I did some, I Googled, we have many female leaders, and we have had in the past, of course. But, when you Google the press and you Google, for example, top female leaders, they talk about people, who have, billions of naira or whatever. And you're thinking, yeah, it's not really about money, right? It's about the effect of these people on society, their leadership. Who have they led? What have they done? So these are the things we need to think about. Until today, Ursula Burns in the US is the only black female who has ever been at the helm of a Fortune 500 company, which honestly is fairly disgraceful. I'm sure things will change now, of course. So let's talk about some of the leadership skills that make leaders stand out from the rest. And I think the first is, we just mentioned Jacinda Ardern, it's effective communication. They are effective communicators because, it's not really just about, speaking and, you hearing. It's really about the non-verbal language, yeah? Basically it's even about your body language. It's about the fact that, people can see that you're actually listening to what they say. It's about the fact that people can actually sort of, understand that you have understood, what they have said, and you have, recommunicated that to them. It's the ability to read, to write, and it is, as I said, active listening, of course. So these skills are critical because, they are the things that will help you establish very strong relationships and influence others. I mean, if you are a leader and, somebody in your team is talking to you and you are looking out in the, to the window and you're taking phone calls while they're busy chatting with you, then, obviously there's no interest there. So you really have to show that you are interested. And so you will find that women who communicate effectively allow their team, their followers, they give them appropriate guidance. They, give them the opportunity to speak, ask questions, seek feedback, and transparent communication. That is very critical and most important. I remember when I worked in Total, and we had so I started in what we call Total Upstream, which was actually an exploration subsidiary of Total. And Total then had merged with Total Fina, and then thereafter merged with ELF and became Total Fina ELF. And when that happened, Total Upstream had to merge with ELF Petroleum. So we were coming from a company that had 30 people to a company that had over, 800, 1,000 people. And so first of all, that was a bit of a culture shock. But what was important there was that because I was in charge of administration, legal, which included HR, blah, blah, You know, I was really at the forefront of negotiating the transition. And I know that the one thing that helped was the fact that I was openly communicating with people, because everybody was, you know, they were afraid of where we're going to lose our jobs, where they're going to put us, am I going to go down 5 grades, am I going to, you know, all these things. So it's very important to be able to let people know what is happening and why it's happening. Okay. Yes, so clearly a readiness to clarify issues that are unclear, so that you're on the same page. Otherwise, you know, you just be talking to yourself, really. So authenticity, for me, that is one thing that, well, you can't really fake being authentic, can you? So, you know, it's something that needs to be learned. And I'll just say share one little story about being authentic also. So I went to, while again, still in corporate, I had the benefit of going to a training at Harvard Business School or executive management, whatever it is, HBS, for a course on authentic leadership. And what they did was that they put us in groups of 5 or 6 and explained to us that we were going to be together throughout that training, right, which lasted 7 days. And so before we started anything on the training, they wanted us to get together and to share things that were extremely private to us, right? But before this, we all signed some sort of NDA, confidentiality agreements. You know, what we say here stays here. And it was really a bit of a nerve-wracking experience, because honestly, you know, you're sharing things that are sort of like maybe still buried deep inside you. And I think actually I was the only woman in that group. So, you know, but that is what authentic leadership is. You have to empty yourself out. You have to be able to be true to who you are. And, you know, we realized that doing that brought us closer together and enabled us to go forward with the training. So it's something to bear in mind. So back to trustworthiness and authenticity. If you want people to follow you, they have to be able to understand that it's not all about you. You know, it can't be about you. It's got to be about the cause, whatever that is. Okay. And so because that environment of trust, that environment of authenticity will always create a climate of, okay, I've said it. It will create a climate of trust and commitment. So the skill is critical in ensuring that your team, followers, etc., become more comfortable and prepared to adapt to change and to show a willingness to embrace new visions, new goals, new objectives. So to be authentic, you have to be credible. People have to know that really what they see is what they get. You have to be willing to listen to others, and you have to be a little bit open in terms of, you know, okay, changing your mind. It's not that easy, but it's something that we learn. You have to honor any commitment that you make. Honestly, that is one thing that gives me nightmares. I'd rather not commit than commit and renege. And it's something that really irritates me. It's one of my pet hates. You know, you can't say you're going to do something and then you don't show up, or you just don't do it. It's wrong. So, and also, of course, be ready to accept your mistakes and to make corrective measures, corrective actions. You have to be confident. And, you know, you have to give credit to your team or to your followers. This is one thing that I find that people don't do enough. We have to do it. You know, if somebody, I remember again, okay, there's a lot of my experiences from corporate life. So being the head of a division or whatever it is, I remember particularly with legal. So the practice was that the manager would always sign the sort of memo, the opinion, whatever it is. But when I started in that position, I realized that, wait, this is not right, because why is it always the manager? And then I thought of it in 2 ways. First thing is, I was all about exposing my team. It's important to expose your team. And secondly, you have to let them start to learn to take ownership for what they do, right? So if they prepare a body of work, right, especially something like a legal body of work, it's important for people to acknowledge that, yes, they have this, even if I've participated, and I will always participate, they are the ones who have done the initial work, right? They're the one who put it together, blah, blah. So it's important for them to get that credit. And by doing that, you're exposing them. By sending them off to make presentations, you're exposing them. And especially if you're working in the corporate setting, where, you know, I don't know, it's always managers that are there, you know, taking the lead, making all the presentations, answering the questions. You know, my biggest high is when, you know, people would tell me that my team was hot, because honestly, that for me gave me credit, gave me credibility. And so also it means that your team is learning as they go along. So that when you're not there, you know, it can't be because TCJ is not there that the team doesn't perform. No, in fact, all the better when I'm not there, that, you know, my team can take charge and run with things. So, of course, very important to share information, very important to help them, guide them even with the work that they're doing, even if, you know, you're nowhere near where you're not going to be acknowledged in terms of, you know, putting anything together, but that's fine. What is important is that what comes out of the team is a grade A, okay? So share information, let them know what's going on in whatever situation, you know, you find yourselves, and be fair. You know, make decisions based on the facts. Try and get as many of the facts together before you make a decision. And please be consistent. That is important. You can't be hot and cold at all. Okay, so the other thing that a leader has to be is a problem solver, sadly. So as you know, you must have heard that the buck stops at your desk. And that's really the case. It does stop at your desk. So leaders must be able to solve problems, especially, you know, problems in this awful global pandemic that we find ourselves in. Many hard decisions have had to be made during this period. I personally have had to make some very hard decisions. They have not been easy, but, you know, that's why you're the leader, right? So you have to be able to address all the various issues and try and, you know, create some sort of pathway for your team. You have to be able to solve problems within your own company, organization, whatever it is, by asking questions and making sure that you're listening to what, you know, the answers that you're getting. And then, you know, send out your team to probe further and to get more information so that you can all make an informed decision. There has to be the capacity to think, of course, with an open mind. I think I've said that. And also, yeah, you have to make all these various assumptions to be able to come to some sort of decision. So, for example, during this period, I put BCPs, which is business continuity plans, because everybody has had to have a BCP. Well, we should have had it before, but if you didn't have it before, then well, I would do it now. It doesn't matter that you're a startup. It doesn't matter that you're a small firm. You just have to be able to know what would happen if. And because I had to do like scenario mapping, I think I started for, what's going to happen in April, what if, many scenarios, and then, if this, then that. And you have to go with it, and then you have to revisit it. So I haven't revisited mine, but I must before the end of this month, because we have to see what is it that we said, and, where are we today and where are we going? And yes, objectivity is very, very, very crucial. You can never look at things from your subjective view, especially when you have to take a decision, which is an important decision that would affect people. You have to be, as fairly objective as possible. And I know that we are sort of, we're fairly subjective as human beings, but I think that it's actually quite easy to be objective, just, not to take any sides, just try and be that middle person who listens to the left and listens to the right, and then, take that decision based on what you've heard and where you think, what you think is the right answer. It may not be, but then of course we're not all perfect, are we? So, but most importantly, we are all made up of all kinds of unconscious biases. Women against women, women against men, men against women, men against men. We are all, but it's just that we bear the brunt of this unconscious bias thing. Women can't do this because of that. Women can't do this because of that. And that's really just, not right. So today, rather since last night, my daughter has been sending me some messages about somebody who alleged that she had been sexually assaulted and why the public came down on her like a ton of bricks and the police arrested her, and why is it that, you know, women are always vilified, why would anybody lie, all kinds of things. So, but really behind that is a lot of unconscious bias. Because, you know, it's just that, well, maybe she was wearing this or wearing that, or maybe because she wore makeup, or maybe because whatever. But it's really, and women do it to women. Why didn't she cover herself from top to toe? And, you know, these things, you know, nobody should experience any act of violence. And, you know, it's just not something that should be encouraged. And it's not something that should go unpunished. So as far as I'm concerned. So try to understand, and, you know, International Women's Day today was all about, you know, each for equal. Was it each for equal this year? I hope, yeah. But anyway, it was basically around unconscious biases. I remember, you know, speaking about that, and there's so many ways that we are biased against each other. You know, we like people who look like us. We like people who think like us. We like people who speak like us. We like, you know, we like people who, you know, have gone to the same schools, and, you know, but okay. So these are biases that we really have to guard against. Confidence and motivation, critical. If you don't exude confidence, and honestly, this is where, what is it now called? Okay, it's escaped me. But a lot of women don't feel that they should be in the positions that they're in. They don't really feel that, and somebody please remind me if you remember what that is. But it's a phrase that we very often use. And so, you know, we feel that we shouldn't be in a place because, you know, we don't have enough qualifications, because we don't feel that, you know, people would listen to us, etc. But the truth is that we have to build our own confidence, and we have to understand. Oops, sorry, I'm just seeing some messages. Let me just make sure that nobody's trying to tell me.
Yeah, someone mentioned imposter syndrome.
That's the one, exactly. That's it, exactly. Imposter syndrome. So yes, because, you know, even today, I mean, you know, sometimes I'm asked to speak and I'm like, what do they want? What am I going to say? You know, so it never really leaves. Women especially, because I can tell you that our male colleagues, if there's a job that's up and they've asked for certain skills, the men have the confidence with 40% of the skill set that they have. The women are waiting till they have 120%. And honestly, this does not bode us well at all. So we really need to try to build up our confidence, and, you know, we just have to sort of like own it. Because as a leader, if no one's going to follow a leader that has no confidence, that's for sure. And so it's important to be confident. We've spoken about sharing. Very important to share, you know, any information that you have, that you feel that, you know, your team should, well, okay, you need to share, basically. I mean, you're not sharing everything, but everything that they need to know, you need to share. You don't wait until tell them to go and find it. No, share. If you have the information, share it. And so what else? Yeah, you can't be afraid of making decisions. We've already spoken about that, because when you have to make that decision, it's not going to be left to anyone else to do it. So emotional intelligence is another critical skill, because it's you really have to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as, you know, what others are feeling, right? So, and you know, for me, I don't know, maybe it's something that comes as part of you. Maybe it's part of your psyche, but I think it's also something that we can learn. And we have to have empathy, because, you know, if people don't, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the other person to know how it feels. That's the easiest way to explain it. Because if you don't, then you're just going to, you know, assume that people should feel in a certain way because this is how you feel. But hey, guess what? You know, first of all, you weren't brought up in the same home. And even if you were, sometimes it could be different. Secondly, you weren't brought up in the same environment. You can't, you know, people are going through different things. And so when I was told by some members of my team way back when, who came from a consulting background to, to where they were, they were explaining that even though they were, sort of early married, their bosses would keep them in the office till 10 p.m. They didn't care. Even when they said, something about maybe small children, they didn't care. And sadly, these were female bosses, who, okay, maybe weren't married, but hey, you know what? So put yourself in the position of somebody who is. So that for me, if there's nothing else that you take away from this, I think this is one of the main things that you should. So also we said, yes, you have to be, if you're confident, you have to be self-aware. Social skills are essential. I mean, you cannot go anywhere if you do not have the correct social skills. And if you don't know what those are, please look them up, because it's very important, just the way you are, the way your whole outlook on life, in your interactions with people in society, the way your body language, everything, social skills, even the way you eat at a table, the way you hold your glass, the way you hold your fork and knife, all those things are important and good. They all go to who you are. So also as a leader, you really have to manage negative emotions and any stressful situations, because you don't want to be overwhelmed and you don't want to start making rash decisions or judgments. You don't want to, sort of like decide off the cuff. So I've been told that mindfulness is a way to deal with this. I think I am more of a breather. And I say that because when I had my first child, it was breathing that took me through the labor because nobody offered me anything else. And so that was where I learned how powerful breathing is. You can breathe through anything. When you exercise, if your body isn't moving and you breathe through it, honestly, your body will yield. So breathing and like deep breaths are very critical. And I know that if you take 5 deep breaths, breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth 5 times, honestly, it does calm you. Some people talk about, meditation, and you can meditate in 2 minutes. It's just really just trying to be in a different space. And there's all kinds of apps for meditation and all sorts of things. So please look them up, because these are ways that you can manage, stress. And we are living in very stressful times right now. So you don't want to be a frazzled leader. You want to be more poised and assertive as opposed to reactive. Here we go again. Right. Innovation and creativity. We've spoken about innovation. I mean, first of all, the leader has to, have some light bulb moments, because otherwise, where does that vision come from, first of all? And then where does the path to fulfilling that vision come from if you don't have any creativity? And I actually used to think that I had no creative bone in my body, but I'm beginning to see that actually, maybe I do, after all. We have far too many challenges, in this world. And it is a necessary leadership skill for everything that we do, actually. We have to be able to think outside the box a little bit. We have to be able to, find new things, create new things. But you need your team also to help, so brainstorming is a great way to innovate. And I speak about ideation. If anybody read my MBA story, one of the things that I spoke about as my biggest takeaways was the way in which, ideation works, and the way that, you can come up with one little idea, but by the time you've spoken with, 3, 4 people, and they have thoroughly, turned your idea upside down, and finally you get to a place where, yes, that looks good. It's actually a really great way of ideating. And it's the same thing with when you write an article. And, I'm one who always, I will always correct, But I also want my work to be corrected. So I send it out and I ask for opinions, and then I decide on which way I want it to look. So women do generally create a high level of generally do possess a high level of creativity, especially in the way they address challenges, because they have their different working styles, and please, we must all embrace diversity. It can't just be women. And when I say diversity, I don't mean the male and female thing. I mean everything that is different about us. Some people are quick thinkers, some people are slow. Some people think outside the box, and some people, are caught within that. But imagine when you put those people together, what would come out of anything, especially when people are from different environments, different backgrounds, different countries. Those are the best. And that's why America is the way it is today, by the way, because that is one country that has a hugely diverse population. Okay, even though they try to keep, the Black people not quite, they didn't want them to rise necessarily, but that's going to change, right? So diversity is key in every way possible. Also, to use creativity and innovation, leaders should focus on ensuring that the team obviously is provided with their tools. You can't exactly, I mean, how can you want somebody to do something, but you don't give them the tools that they need? And by the way, that also includes a lot of, training, even if it's a one-on-one training, because there's some things that, okay, maybe you can't find particular training modules for, but you can train people in the way that you want them to be, in the way that you want them, with the knowledge that you want them to have. So we have to just constantly encourage our people. We have to, you cannot stifle people. You cannot not allow for mistakes to be made, because if you come down hard on failure, on mistakes, with intimidation, then then that is definitely not an environment where you are going to have any creativity or indeed innovation. So I've left this to the very last because we've actually spoken about it throughout. I don't really think you can be a leader without having some sort of vision. And that vision has to be realistic, and it has to be convincing. And you have to be able to communicate it in a way that can be seen. And of course, it's usually futuristic. So vision must provide direction, it must set priorities, and also provide a market, because you have to be able to be able to see whether you're on the right track or not. So you should be able to influence other leaders, and also please keep asking your team members, your employees, about the issues that your company may face. Brainstorm. We've spoken about that. So just keep brainstorming, because you're going to keep hearing from people, and that's what is going to make your vision come to life. Now, I decided that I should mention the skill set for sitting on a board, because I think everybody aspires to sit on a board. And, these days, boards are looking for, you want a mix of skill set on your board. You can't have all of them, but there are some very basic ones that you must have. And really, you can't sit on a board and not be able to read an audit report or the profit and loss. You can't read the P&L, you can't read, the accounts. You have to be able to do those at least you have to be able to challenge. Okay, I'm not saying that you should be able to prepare, financials or, your profit and loss sheet or balance sheet or whatever. But you need to be able to look, you need to be able to know what to look out for, so that you can challenge anything that looks a bit odd. And the one thing that I learned about reading an audit report is that the first thing that you do is you go to this, you go to the notes, because that's where they hide everything. So that helps. I'm glad. But then also there's, the finance, accounting, audit, risk management. I was saying that technology is big, because everybody is looking for somebody with technological, digital type skills to sit on their board, because everybody knows that they must either have a digital, well, no, that it's not just to have a digital footprint, but it's to have a digital business, no matter what you're doing. And then there is also, of course, strategy, because the board is actually responsible for strategy, right? And the management is responsible for implementing that strategy. International experience helps because it just gives you a bit of more of a global perspective, and also actually helps you, with diversity on a board, because if you have international experience, then you've worked with people from different parts of the world. And then there is, oh yes, M&A. M&A is good, but you don't have to have that, I think. But it helps. It gives you another perspective. When you merge with another company, all the things you have to consider, there's all that change in culture, apart from the commercial side, all that change in culture, and, how in some cases you have to let one side go, the dominant side takes over, well, the culture of the dominant side takes over, etc. So then there's legal, but I mean, obviously, if you're a lawyer, that's great. If you're not, well, leave it to the lawyers. Governance is important because if you're sitting on a board, it's important that you understand, the obligations of a director on a board, and because they have legal obligations and they are legally responsible for whatever happens with the company. So also, of course, regulatory and public policy experience is good, but we don't have to have that. HR, I was saying, is very important because, any company, the employees of a company are the most important asset that company has. So they have to be managed properly. And then, of course, there is communications and PR, which, okay, the experts will have that, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. But it's good to understand about a little bit about branding, about communications, and I think in a way that's what those sort of MBA type, especially the executive ones, those courses help you to do. But you can do these things online now. Everybody's offering all sorts of things online for a fraction of the fee. So it's good to go online and to I think it's actually been a phenomenal time to increase your skills, to learn different things, and you have the internet for that. There's all kinds of things, including mastermind. No, not mastermind. Yeah, I think it's mastermind or something. No, it's not mastermind. It's I could know something, some other app where you can go to do these different courses. You listen to people and they're telling you about their experience, and they're teaching you things. There's public speaking, there's entrepreneurship, there's storytelling, there's all sorts of different things that you can learn online. So that is another good thing to do. And there, I think, there are a few different types of leaders that you can be. There's democratic, there's autocratic, there's, the, what they call it, sort of like the father figure type leadership. There's also like free for all type leadership. Actually, I think there are about 7. So you have to basically decide on what kind of leader that you are. Democratic, and they all have pros and cons, actually. But the bottom line is, and what this slide is saying, is that it's really not easy to be a leader, regardless of your gender. But the skills can be practiced, and I just think that we need more leaders in this country, especially. Nobody wants us anywhere, by the way. So we better create a situation where we have a country that we are proud of and want to be in. So. Yeah, so practice all the skills, read up a lot, attend as many leadership seminars, conferences, training. There's just so much. There's so much under the aspect of leadership. Even, first of all, you will probably find that if you go to a training, they will do personality types, so that helps you understand what kind of person you are. Some leaders are extremely what's the word now? Extrovert. Some are extremely introverted. And then some are ambiverts. So that will always sort of like determine what kind of leader that you are. It doesn't make you any less of a leader at all, but it does help you understand. And I was saying the other day that, because I'm fairly introverted, even though nobody believes me. I was reading a book called Quiet, and that book is about introverts and how sort of introverts can rule the world or something. But what was important about it was that it made me understand better my personality and, better accept it. So I think it's always good to understand who you are so that you are not, constantly comparing yourself with other people. That's one thing you should not be doing at all. So on that note, I will say thank you very much to Talent Bureau for organizing this. Thank you for having me as a speaker, and I hope that it was useful.
So I just want to read out the comment Tope made here. Tope says, excellent topic, Tone. Indeed, transformational leadership principles can help catapult women to the right levels of leadership. Sharing your personal experiences are very, very helpful. And then Jacqueline Ogunsheye said, I appreciate that women leaders are now operating from their authentic energy. The feminine energy is powerful and enough to achieve great things. Excellent topic. Thank you. Amaka, over to you.
Yes. I'm trying to see if anyone is going to send in question. You've actually read the comments that people have made. I don't know if anyone is raising her hand. No. While we wait for her to join in, we all know that internet is so unreliable everywhere in the world, actually, because of the usage. And so just apologize for that break. I know she's trying to join us.
From what they've said, Amaka, what do you think? I was thinking when she mentioned brainstorming, and then she also talked about micromanaging. And I thought micromanaging is trying to make things work, and then controlling. So what's the difference between managing?
Okay, so someone has a question. How best can you manage a leader who is not technology compliant?
Okay. Wow.
Okay, so for me, whichever way is, if you're able to prove to someone that there is value in a particular activity, then I believe the person would embrace that. So if you have a leader who doesn't believe in, who is another generation from another generation, you need to make the person understand by providing an outcome. So you have used the technology, and then what has technology done for you as a person, or how has technology influenced the process? You should be able to say that if you're doing something manually, it's going to take you 10 hours. But if you're using technology, it's going to actually take 2 hours. So there is a performance measurement attached to it that you're going to be saving 8 hours. So I feel the leader should see that value, that using technology has a benefit to the workplace and even to personal life. So by doing that, I believe everyone, whether a leader or a follower, there are actually some followers who don't want to use technology. They still believe that, oh, yeah, so not necessarily leaders. So trying to show the person the value of using technology is the first, point of call to getting that person on board. Felicia, do you have any question? There's another question here.
Okay.
Do you have any, contribution to that?
Yeah, just what you've said, showing the person the value technology brings on board. It makes work simpler, it makes work easier, it saves time, it saves money. So, presenting those kind of cases would help any leader understand what technology does.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, how can a woman leader not feel threatened if she has a direct high flyer who is ahead of her in some business critical tasks or application? So how can a woman leader not feel threatened if she has a direct high flyer who is ahead of her in some business critical tasks? Okay, so there's always the myth, I call it a myth, that women can work together because when the other woman is doing well, the other one is envious of them. So as a woman, you shouldn't feel threatened, because the saying goes, you you become or you attract what you celebrate. So when you celebrate people's successes, automatically you magnet those success. And I have seen it happen in my life where I've had scenarios. I have my mates, they went into the university before I did. They were, flying in their career. I had to take care of kids. And then, so my career was fluctuating. I was in and out of job. And I could see that they were quite ahead of me. But when the time came for me to, move on, and I celebrated them, I joined hands with them. I was ready to help them with what they needed to do. And at the end of the day, I still caught up to them, caught up with them and probably doing better than they are doing because I was focused on my lane. So looking at someone and saying because someone is a high flyer and then it makes you feel bad, it automatically doesn't make you a leader. If you are a leader and then you have, followers or subordinates that are doing better than you in tasks, and it's also another thing is for you to learn from them. You can actually learn from people. You can ask them questions. I mean, humility goes a long way to, magnet a lot of things in our lives. It doesn't make you a lesser person. It doesn't make you a lesser human being. How can a woman leader not feel threatened if she has a direct high flyer who is ahead of her in some business critical tasks or applications?
So you see, there again, we talk about confidence. And, you have to be confident in who you are, right? And to be honest, you will always have high flyers. And they may be your direct reports, but, so what? Everybody has, in my opinion, everybody has their own path. And to be honest, I was always very proud of my, direct reports that were high flyers. And, when I look at where they are today, it gives me joy. But the point is that, you can't feel threatened because you are supposed to be the leader. You're supposed to be guiding their career. So why would you want to stifle that career? It doesn't make any sense. You have to try to build your own confidence. And the thing is, preparation is key for everything, and you can't be perfect on every subject. And so, for example, if you have a team, they're not necessarily all doing the same thing that you are doing. They're doing different things. But even if they are, a high flyer in your own sort of like your own line, it really doesn't matter because your path is definitely going to be different to their path. So, prepare for that, be confident in who you are and continue to do your thing. And if you feel so threatened, then try and improve yourself. Okay? So that's what I would say.
Okay, we have another question and it says, we've not answered this one yet, but it says, how can you manage a leader that in your opinion, supposed to be in, but post in is, that in your opinion does not count in decision making? Anytime he called for a meeting or he calls for a meeting, it's always like a briefing and not a meeting. So basically saying that the leader doesn't contribute.
Leader is instructing, basically. Yes. Not. Yes. Okay. How do you sorry?
Does not contribute, appropriately to meetings. It's just like when he calls for a meeting, it doesn't contribute to decision making, just comes to the meeting and just gives a brief. And so how do you handle such a leader?
So that's really not a leader, is it? Yeah. No, that's not a leader. That's somebody who gives instructions. Yeah. If you have to work with that kind of person, chances are you probably won't stay there very long. I would just try to find a way to so it depends on whether that leader is the sort of person that you can have a chat with. It's always worth exploring that possibility of having a chat with with somebody who's your boss or whatever, to say can we sort of like can you explain better this instruction, or what if we do it in a different way. If it's not the kind of person that you can talk to in that way, then I think maybe, you're not in the right place, and you should try to find, find another either position within the company, or, start looking out, because that person is just going to stifle you're not going to be happy there for very long.
Okay. Okay. I thank you. Someone just made a comment, Femi Atilade Ola. It says a high-flying direct report is an asset,
Absolutely.
not a threat, and should be treated as such. Their success contributes directly to yours. We should learn to harness such talent. You are not expected to have the exact same skill set as your direct reports, presumably. That's why you have them on your team.
So totally, I couldn't agree more. Said it.
Okay, so the question now is, what common leadership bias should leaders be conscious about?
Well, I think we need to first of all be biased. We need to first of all get away from tribal things. We need to sexual male or female, right? Well, those two are, and also things like, where they went to school, various different things that make up people, right? Because just because somebody has not maybe had your advantages, or maybe, you haven't had theirs, doesn't mean that they're not right for whatever it is that's being done, right? So it's really just trying to step out of your own self for a few minutes and assess the person just without any biases. And you have to be conscious about doing that, because those biases are just there. You're not, they're unconscious. That's why they're called unconscious biases. But you have to be conscious about the fact that they are there, and that you should move away from them. Okay.
Sister, I'd like to quickly, chip in this. While you were away, there was a question. Someone said, how do you manage a leader who is averse to technology? I'm putting it in my own words now. Yes. Let me see if I can. How do you handle a leader who
what kind of company are they working in?
She said, how best can you manage a leader who is not technology compliant?
Wow.
Tell that you want to type this, let us know what company it is, and then she would be able to.
Well, not the name, obviously, but
but the industry or the sector will be fine.
But I mean, I think in any case, that's a difficult one, because I mean, that's literally like dragging somebody from, the dark ages into light. And it's hard. I see it with the judiciary in this country. When they started talking about whether they would hold virtual hearings or not, there was this whole push against it. Why? It can only be because, they're scared to embrace this technology, which, is the only way forward, to be honest. So I guess it will be, sitting down to, and if that person, is that person the owner of the company? I wonder if that person is the owner of the company. If the person is the owner of the company, is really having that discussion about, where do they see the company going? And even if they're not, the owner of the company, they really have to understand that really is the only way forward. I mean, look at this period since March or April, we've all been online. We've had meetings online, we've had parties online, we've had funerals online, we've had weddings online. If anybody is not digitally compliant, well, that company, first of all, is not going anywhere. So maybe try and, if you can't influence them to look at digitization, then technology, then you really are not in the right place. Sorry, but that's really the case.
Thank you so much for your time, making time out of your so busy schedule to take up this webinar. We really appreciate you, and then for answering the questions. The answers to the questions were just spot on. I mean, we tried to do that for you, but thank God you came back on, and then you rescued us. Yes, you rescued us. So
I didn't even realize I was off until I was sort of like stopped sharing my slides and found that there's nobody there.
There was nobody there. Yes. Thank you so much. And someone is saying, I want to appreciate the facilitator and the organizer of this web seminar. It has been a real worthwhile time. I don't know if I can get the slide to always go back to. We're going to share this on YouTube. I was just about sending that so you can connect with us on social media platform, all our social media platforms. So you have Talent Bureau Limited or Talent Bureau Online, and then you can find us on YouTube. You have to, like our page, send in your comments. This video is going to be uploaded on YouTube too, and then put on your notification so that every time we update, even if you're not available to attend a webinar, you would have access to it. And we also want to say, as many people that joined, we want to tell you that we'll be having a lot more sessions, and we're going to be improving our session. In fact, we're going to be doing paid sessions now. So this is just for your information, so you know that we will be, increasing the content, because a lot of people have reached out to us saying, can you help us with this? Can you help us with our CVs, our LinkedIn? How do I do this? How do I do that? I need to learn this. I have, I need to know how to, bring up this skill in my place of work. I need to know how to handle this, and so many requests. So we've decided that we were going to have this webinar as often as possible and make some of them paid events. And most people have said they don't mind if it's a paid event, because our webinars have been worthwhile and it's been so effective. They've been getting value from all our webinars. And I just want to promise you all that we would continue to offer you value. So thank you everyone for showing up on this webinar. And we hope to see you guys next time we put up a flyer. So
thank you, everyone.
Well done, Talent Bureau. Keep going. You're doing a great job. It's phenomenal. Everybody needs, help with something or the other. So what you're doing is really excellent. Well done.
Thank you. And then for the benefit of those who have missed any of our webinars, like Amaka was saying, we've got all of them uploaded. So this is the 6th edition. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 since March. They're all on YouTube. So reach out to us and we can always share the link with you. Thank you so much, TCJ, as I'll be calling you from now on. Thank you for making this impactful. If there's anything I'm going back home with today, it's on the realizing that leadership is not just about being yourself, and then the part where you show the qualifications of being on board. So I think we should all take that audit and see what areas we need to work on and what areas we need to develop as in our skills. So thank you everyone for showing up. Amaka, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. We appreciate you. Bye.